Okay, I wrote this book. It's called Everything is Beachy. It's a little bit different book than what you might have heard before because it is 4 books in one. So I'm going to kind of explain that to you really quick before I start. This first story is always going to be about the Coast Guard and their jobs. This second story is always going to be about a man named Bob. This third story is Nate's story. And this fourth story is Joey's story. Now these 4 stories do coincide. They have parts that kind of link together. So if you can kind of think while I'm reading, how could Nate's story relate to maybe the Coast Guard, or maybe how could the Coast Guard story relate to Joey's story, or how could Joey's story relate to Bob's story? Kind of think about linking them in your brain, and we'll talk at the end if you guys saw anything that maybe could link them, okay? So like I said, the name of the book is Everything's Beachy, and when I am reading from a certain section, I'll be pointing to it, so then that way you guys can kind of keep track about where I'm at on the book, okay? Here we go. The United States Coast Guard is a really important job. These men often live in ships for weeks at a time, helping people who are caught in storms, lost at sea, and keeping the waterways free of people who break the law. When the Coast Guard has a mission to complete, there is a large red light that glows brightly, along with a siren that blows. Sometimes someone from Command Central will give them directions over the radio, and then they have to get to work. Today is no exception. Joe, the captain, was abruptly woken from his sleep from the sound of the siren. He jumped up out of bed and rushed to the radio. Unit 53, Unit 53, do you copy? Unit 53, I need a copy. Unit 53, Unit 53. A voice crackled over the radio. This is Captain Joe Snyder. I have a copy. How can we help today? The captain replied. Bob grabbed the coconut and started to smash it against the rock. Smash, thump, thud, bang, whack, crack. He had been planning this moment for a while now. Everything was ready, but was he? He couldn't spend the whole day in the bathroom. He had to get back to the game. Joey's dad woke him up early. He wanted to get on the road before rush hour traffic started. Joey was so excited to have a guy's weekend with his dad that the early morning didn't bother him at all. He gathered all of his bags and packed them into the bed of the truck. Joey didn't know what to expect or where they were going, but somehow it was better that way. After a few seconds of silence, the radio crackled back to life. Captain Schneider, we have word of a fishing vessel who is poaching dolphins. Your assistance is requested immediately. This vessel is located 46 nautical miles due north of your current position. You need to leave right away to catch up to them. We are en route. Unit 53, over and out. Joe set down the radio and thrashed the ship into higher speed. Then he called out over the intercom. Men, we are in pursuit of a poaching vessel. Prepare the helicopter and the lifeboats. I plan to board this vessel and shut down their operation. Delicious, he thought to himself as he was drinking the sweet juice. Then all of a sudden, he saw something running across the beach out of the corner of his eye. As he walked down the aisle, Sheila was looking for him. She threw her hands in the air. You just missed a home run, she screamed. Oh, that's awesome, he replied half-heartedly. The box in his pocket had all of his attention. As they got to the interstate, Joey rolled down the window to feel the air blow through his hair. Everything was going smooth until... About an hour later, they were at the inside of the poachers. Joe asked the pilot, Miguel, to get in the helicopter and keep an eye on them from the sky. As they edged closer, Joe began to talk over the megaphone to the operators of the poaching vessel. This is the United States Coast Guard. We have reason to believe you are poaching animals. Prepare to be boarded. The megaphone crackled as he turned it off. He gave the signal and the lifeboats dropped into the water. 3 boats surrounded the vessel and 12 men got on board. It was the largest crab he had ever seen. As he snuck over to the den the crab scurried into, he wondered out loud, how am I ever going to get you out of there and keep all of my fingers? Suddenly, the speakers rumbled to life over the grandstands. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a special announcement to make. If everyone would please look towards the Jumbotron. This was his cue. Nate slipped into the aisle, got down on one knee, just in time for the screen to flash. Sheila, will you marry me? I love you. Nate. She started screaming with excitement, "Yes, yes, yes!" Right? She couldn't contain her joy. She was jumping up and down. She grabbed Nate by the collar and pulled him in for a kiss. Skipper, the family dog, jumped out of Joey's lap and lunged out the window. Luckily, Joey grabbed his hind legs just in time and pulled him back into the safety of the truck. Yes? Some of them all do have a problem. Yes, you're right. Do you see how their problems are going to connect here in a little bit? Miguel landed his chopper as soon as the vessel was boarded. Andrew called on the radio from the vessel back to Joe on the ship. "We have 3 dolphin carcasses here. What do you want to do, boss?" Joe snatched up the radio quickly. "Cuff 'em and bring 'em in. Seize their vessel and have John take it back to shore." "Will do, sir," Andrew called back, and within minutes the crew from the vessel were brought to the ship and placed into the brig. "Nasty fellas," Joe frowned. "Glad to have them off the waters. Let's follow their vessel back to the mainland, and we can let them out there. Then they can answer to the law." Bob slipped a branch into the opening of the den and poked at it until the crab latched onto the stick. Then ever so gently he pulled the crab out of its hiding space. "You will make a delicious dinner," he said as he smiled widely at the crab. Gingerly he placed him into the plastic bag he found on the shoreline. The next year flew by, and before you knew it, it was their wedding day. The church was filled with love and laughter as they said their vows to one another. Skipper licked his face wildly. By the time they made it back to shore, the sun had begun to set, and there was a terrible storm rolling in. "Glad we missed being stuck out in this weather," Miguel said to Joe. "No kidding," Joe responded. "It looks like a fierce one." Bob's stomach started growling loudly as he gathered the wood for the fire. He couldn't wait to eat the crab. He neatly stacked the wood and began twisting a stick against some kindling until it made a hot ember. He gently blew, and almost like magic, the whole pile of wood was aflame. "Time for dinner," he thought to himself. They danced the night away with their friends and family. At the end of the night, Sheila's dad made a huge announcement. As a wedding gift, the whole family had went in on a dream honeymoon vacation for the newlyweds. They were going to go to Mexico. Joey spotted a big sign that read, "Huntington Beach, next exit." His stomach filled with butterflies. He hadn't been to the beach in so long. He hoped that this is where his dad was taking him. Joe was having troubles falling asleep. He wanted to think it was because of the strong storm making the boat rock back and forth more than usual, but he really missed his family when he was gone for long periods of time. So when the red signal light came on, he was out of bed before the siren started. By the time he got to the control room, the radio was already going crazy. "Unit 53, do you copy? Unit 53, I need a copy. This is Captain Joe Snyder. I have a copy." Joe spoke into the radio. "Captain Joe, we've gotten word that a plane has been caught in a storm. One man lost at 31 degrees north, 118 degrees west. We need a search and rescue. I repeat, we need a search and rescue." "We're on it." Joe dropped the microphone and called over the intercom. "Miguel to the control room. Miguel, report to the control room." As he was eating the delicious crab meat, he saw a shiny object in the distance. What could that be? He thought to himself. He decided to investigate. As he got closer, he noticed it was just an old bottle, but this gave him an idea. That night they could hardly sleep. They were so excited to go on their honeymoon together. Neither of them have ever been out of the country before, so a 14-day cruise to Mexico was something they couldn't put out of their heads. The truck slowed and turned off the interstate towards the beach. Joey was smiling ear to ear. When Miguel came in, Joe told him about the search and rescue. He said they needed to get the helicopter fired up and see if they could find any of the remains. Miguel rushed to the helicopter and jumped in. This time, Joe jumped into the passenger seat and they were off. They made circles around the area where the plane lost radio signal, but they couldn't find anything. They came back to the ship for a refuel and waited for the storm to break so that they could continue their search. After many hours and having found nothing, they decided to call it quits. It's always a bad day when you can't find what you're looking for, but they tried not to let that get them down. Bob raced back over to the fire and grabbed a charred piece of wood and then found an old banana leaf. Using the charcoal, he wrote down the words on the leaf. Then he neatly rolled the leaf and shoved it into the bottle. With all his might, he hurled the bottle into the ocean. He wasn't sure if anyone would ever receive his message, but he was full of hope that one day someone would read his words. When they stepped into the cruise liner, it was like they were stepping into a castle. Everything shone and glistened. It was going to be an unforgettable vacation. The truck wasn't even fully stopped before Joey and Skipper jumped out and started racing towards the water. After about, did you guys see something on this page? Yeah, I heard the bottle. Good eyes. That's nice, right? It's linking it. What?
Saying that I'm thinking he's stranded and then someone fell into the ocean, so I'm thinking he's the one who fell into the ocean.
You're already connecting them. That's perfect. Okay, so you think he's the guy that got out of the plane. And you guys can see the bottle here, the same bottle that he threw. Man, you guys are smart. About a week had passed since the plane went missing, and there was still no information about the case. The crew tried to put it out of their minds, but they always wondered what happened to the man flying the plane. Did he survive? Was he okay? It's just hard to live with unanswered questions, but sometimes that's how the job of a Coast Guardman works. Almost by happenstance, like they were all collectively wishing for a break in the case, the red light shone bright and the siren sounded. Unit 53, do you copy? The radio cracked. I copy, Joe replied quickly. The radio burst to life with exhilarating news. We got word of a couple that spotted some wreckage. It sounded like a plane's wing at 29 degrees north, 118 degrees west. We need you to go check up on the findings. We are on it, Joe said, back to Command Central. He turned and looked at Miguel, who was standing beside him, listening to the conversation. Suit up, buddy. This might be our big break. Then the two of them ran out of the control room and quickly boarded the helicopter. It was beginning to get dark, and the fire was starting to go out. Bob thought he had better get back to shelter in case the rains came again tonight. He curled up in the corner of his small hut and went to sleep for the night. Tomorrow would be another day of hunting for food. He needed his sleep. They did many fun things on the cruise ship, such as dance, swim, play cards, and watch nightly performances. But the thing they enjoyed the most was taking the time to stare out into the vastness of the ocean. They immediately splashed into the water. Joey's pants were soaked to his knees, and Skipper was up to his neck. It was cold, but they didn't care. They circled the wreckage and landed on the water next to it. Joe dove into the water and swam to the wing that was floating. He saw the serial number on the side and radioed the information back to the ship. 54 TED 256 GKRE. Is this our missing plane? Yes, sir, the radio crackled back to him. What? A glimmer of hope washed over Joe. Now they knew where the plane went down. They could search the area and maybe stumble upon some more clues. Waka 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 waka. The sound of air being hacked into bits shook Bob from his slumber. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes. Could it be? Was he seeing things? Was this really what he thought it was? On the 5th day of the cruise, they both were looking out into the distance when they saw a large chunk of metal drift by, and then another, and another.
Somebody used my pen.
They thought this was quite odd that someone should be informed right away. They were throwing a ball when all of a sudden, something shiny caught Joey's eye. It was a bottle with something inside. So now he's finding the bottle, right? The one that we saw in the ocean earlier. When Joe got back to the helicopter, he was cold, but that didn't matter. That was the plane we were looking for, Miguel. This is our big break. Let's search the area. They circled and circled the area, and just when they were about to give up, Miguel spotted some land in the distance. Do you think it's worth searching the island, he asked Joe. Why not? What could it hurt, Joe responded. So Miguel flew to the island and landed the helicopter on the sandy beach.